Guys, welcome. I'm Evan Saint-Gerard. I want to introduce you to Anthony Curcio. We're talking about zoning laws and how important they are basically for your rights as a homeowner or someone who's going to be purchasing a home. So, Anthony, the floor is yours. What do you want to discuss first?
Well, I'm going to discuss basically use variances and area variances and how those affect your property. But I'll start from the beginning. Basically, when the town or the village develops a comprehensive plan, they basically lay out the development plan for the town or the village, and creating numerous zoning districts, and then they decide where those zoning districts are going to go in the town or the village. Depending on the town and the zoning district your property is located in, this will determine what you're permitted to do on the property, whether it's what you're allowed to do on the property or how high you're allowed to build, and so on and so forth. For someone who owns a piece of property is looking to use it in a way that is not permitted in their zoning district, that creates a big problem. You're going to have to go for either a zoning change or use variance, both of which are very difficult to obtain. Change of zone requires basically, just like it says, the zoning district is what it is. You have ideas of using it in a different way. You go before the board, you ask them to change the zone in that particular, for your property only, which it's very hard to overcome, because you run into something called spot zoning, which it kind of, you're changing the zone, and the property owner is getting the benefit to the detriment of the rest of the community a lot of times, and that'll get shot down by a zoning board. Let's see here. And then you're running into a use variance, which that's also a big hurdle to overcome, just because you have to convince a board that your property should be used in a way that wasn't planned out by the comprehensive plan, and there's no other use that you can use that property for that will basically provide value to the property. To get a use variance granted, you have to show that the applicant and the applicable zoning regulations and restrictions have caused unnecessary hardship. What does this mean? To prove hardship, an applicant needs to demonstrate to the zoning board that for each and every permitted use under the zoning regulations, that one, the applicant cannot realize a reasonable return, provided that lack of return is substantial as demonstrated by competent financial evidence. So basically, you're going to show, how other uses wouldn't benefit the owner. That the use you want to, basically the use you're, Jesus Christ, I can't speak today. I apologize. Proposed, yeah, I know. Believe me, the proposed use of the property is the only use that can provide the best return on the investment for the applicant versus the uses that are currently allowed in the zoning district. Number two, the alleged hardship relating to the property is unique and does not apply to a substantial portion of the district or neighborhood. Three, if granted, it won't alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And four, the alleged hardship has not been self-created. Like I said earlier, these elements are hard to prove and overcome. However, I had one recently about a year ago in the village of Freeport. We had a woman bought a piece of commercial property. It was commercial on the first floor and the second floor, office space. And as you know, office space nowadays, it's just tanking, and the people are coming up with different creative ways to overcome that and create more cash flow for each property. So she had an idea. Let's do a mixed use. We're going to have retail on the first floor, do office space on the second, or not office space, residential on the second floor. The zoning district that she was in didn't allow that, so we had to go for a use variance. Luckily for us, the area is being, redeveloped in a way that is, they're promoting mixed use, and also there's been other projects in the area that are much bigger than what she's asking for that have received approvals. So basically, the what we leaned on was the building across the street was, I believe, 4 stories, had 16 apartments and retail on the floor. Our project had 1 apartment upstairs and 2 retail spaces. So as you can see, across the street was a more intense use. We're asking for much less relief. The relief we were asking for on top of the use variance was a parking variance, which everybody in that area kind of runs into that problem because there's no parking. There's only municipal parking, and there's no parking really designated for any of the stores. So when you run into situations like that with parking, you have to get a little creative sometimes. And we were able to speak with the village, met with the mayor, met with their council, and basically came up with an agreement where we would lease property from the village to kind of overcome that lack of parking we were providing, as well as we had a traffic expert come in there and discuss that we would use some of the on-street parking to overcome the parking issues. And when we went before the board, they didn't have any questions. We had a really good presentation. Experts had great testimony, and we wound up getting approved unanimously. So it was a big one to overcome. Usually they're very hard to come by. So we were able to demonstrate a hardship for the applicant at that point.
Something back that you said earlier. You
Sure.
said sometimes these things are difficult, but they're not impossible, as you just demonstrated. Basically,
Yeah.
you have to find people who are creative that can get you the results that you're looking for. So again, it's difficult, but it's not impossible.
No, but most of the time it's a kiss of death. You tell the client, the use variance is very difficult to overcome, but we had a lot of precedent on our side, which I think made it not as big of a hurdle as it normally is. So we lucked out with that.
Again,
Then,
you have creative professionals on your side.
got to be creative. Yeah, I had a great real estate appraiser and a great traffic expert that really sealed the deal on top of, my presentation, and the fact that the board had no questions when we were done, that's a huge thing, because with stuff like this, there's usually a million questions, but apparently we prepared correctly. We gave them the information they were looking for. We didn't give them any reason not to grant our application.
So that's the second point I wanted to mention, is basically whoever you're working with has to have resources.
Yeah.
Which we demonstrated also. So you got to be creative and resourceful.
And you got to have, like we always said, you got to have a good team around you. You got to have good professionals you can rely on in legal industry, as a real estate broker, any field you're in, you got to have a good team around you.
All
So
right.
I wouldn't be able to do that, obviously, without a traffic expert, because I don't know anything about that. It's a totally different.
None of us do until we get that ticket that we don't want to pay for, but we
Yeah,
have to pay.
And the second aspect of the land use that you run into, the legal aspects anyway, is area variances. Area variances you run into more with real estate, residential real estate. The use variance is more of a commercial thing. Area variances are, it's residential and commercial. Residential, you see more of, setbacks, people building too close to their property line, people building too high. They want to be able to do an extension, that sort of thing, and also sometimes you got to go for, lot coverage. You'll have too much stuff in your backyard. You can only pave over so much of your property. You got to leave some green space. They don't want it to turn into, a Manhattan kind of thing. So
Are you seeing them more in the boroughs, or are you seeing them more on the island?
that's a Long Island thing, because I think they're trying to keep it as the suburbs. You hear a lot is they don't want it to turn into another borough. So they try to enforce a lot of the open space. So the lot coverage is a big one. Also the pool safety is a huge thing. Every year you see a kid that's drowned in a pool. It's just a story that comes out every year. When the weather gets warm, people open up their pools, and a lot of these villages and municipalities, they're not joking around. You don't have the proper fence, you don't have the proper alarm. They're going to nail you for it. If you're building a pool without a permit, they're going to get you. And if you're too close to the fence, they're sure going to get you, because kid climbs the fence, he falls in, knocks himself out, can drown in the pool. I mean, there's a million scenarios you can go by, and they're very vigilant with that sort of thing.
What we want to tell the audience is basically, please be vigilant, basically, just like the city, the municipalities are going to be vigilant. You have to be vigilant, basically, what your plans are. Talk to the professionals, make sure that you are allowed to do that. That way you don't have any accidents, death, or anything like that. God forbid anything happens because you didn't do your research. You have to do your due diligence also.
Yeah, absolutely. And, get your permits. I mean, it's very simple. People don't want to do it. I'm going to live here forever. This is this is going to bleed into, another topic we're going to discuss later. But yeah, just get your permits in order. Sleep well at night. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about someone having that neighbor you don't get along with, rat you out, because it only takes one and they could turn your world upside down, unfortunately.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that. The permits basically is a big issue. A lot of people think it's more difficult than it is, and they don't want to go through the hassle. But think of it this way: you're going to get busted at some point. You might as well get the permit basically so you can avoid anything in the future, and the fines. You want to avoid the fines, so get it done right the first time.
Yeah, you don't want to have to go to court, because then you have to appear in court. You got to pay fines. You got to probably go back more than once. It's not a lot of fun. So just do it the right way, and it makes your life easier for sure.
All right, so I think we're kind of running out of time right now, but if anybody wants to get more information about this subject and they want to talk to you basically personally, how can they reach you?
They can reach me at Curcio, ACURCIO, at CurcioLawPLLC.com. Call my office at 516-809-8483. Or you can call my cell, 631-943-8351. You can also text me at both those numbers. They will both be forwarded to my cell phone number. So
it's very rare when a real estate attorney gives you their phone number, and when they give you their cell phone number, you must call them whenever you can. I'm not saying basically be crazy with calling them weird hours of the night, but basically your real estate attorney is a resource. So basically, you have questions about stuff. That's what they're there for, to answer those questions.
I have a 24-hour rule. I make it a point to get back to someone within 24 hours of getting their call, or their text message, or whatever it may be, email.
So when it's something regarding real estate, use a real estate attorney. I cannot stress that enough. Basically, it's pretty much like you're going for open heart surgery. You're not calling your dentist to do that. So get your real estate attorney for your real estate transactions. With that being said, Anthony, what's the last words you want to give to the audience about, just saying, the brand new year, we want to keep them encouraged, basically not listen to the news, the negative stuff that they're hearing. What's some words of encouragement you can give them for the buyers and for the sellers?
For the buyers, do your due diligence before you purchase. Make sure you got a good team of brokers, attorneys, home inspectors, whoever you may have, whoever you're hiring for your professional services. Make sure they're reputable. Make sure they know what they're doing. Speak to people, do your research. And sellers, your house on the market. Maybe even do a title search before you go to market to make sure that you don't have any outstanding mortgages, you don't have any open violations or open permits that need to be closed. Make sure you got all that stuff, taken care of. So this way, your closing doesn't get delayed by something that could have been handled prior to listing your house and going to contract.